Okay,
We're working on things.
right. Now, the key thing we're going to do here is we're going to start off with a poem.
But we want to say thank you for being here when you feel lousy, Bruce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, Bruce.
We hope we'll cheer you up.
Yeah,
So
well,
this poem is something that she sends out every day, literally. It's Rosemary Watola Trommer, Trom. So you can see her website here, wordwoman at rosemary.com. Merry. It's not Mary, it's Rosemary. So she sends out a poem every day. So this is what we got a few days ago. So this is called Self-Portrait as Tuning Fork.
And it's part of our ongoing dialectic between Bruce and me.
Right.
It's why I don't identify as a Buddhist.
Right. So this has this little quotation here. I am what continues, Joy Sharp. So here we go. There is perhaps, you felt it, a moment when the day falls away and your name falls away and everything you thought you knew falls away. And for a moment, you know yourself only as whatever it is that continues. Your whole body abuzz with the eternity of it. And you quiver as if struck by the great hand of what is true, becoming true tone, more vibration than flesh, a human-shaped resonator, tuned to the frequency of life itself. And though later you might try to dissect what happened, in that moment you're too abloom to wonder how or why. You simply are this ecstatic unfolding, knowing the self as I am. So alive and so infinite, you tremble like a song. So there you have it. From Word Woman.
Do you have
Quite
any
nice.
rebuttal, Bruce?
Yeah, very nice.
But you're welcome to argue.
Well,
I say it's the self as instrument. That's what captured. That's why I said to Bart, "Oh, we have to share this with the class next week."
Oh yeah, she has a TED Talk here too, which you can look up. And she lives in, I think she lives in Telluride. I'm not really sure. Colorado for sure. Which is, let me tell you, not the easiest place to get to.
But it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
So she's saying self-portrait is tuning fork. And I say it's an example of the self as an instrument.
well, the self in
It is.
Buddhism is an illusion.
Is liturgy, is that what you said?
No, the self is an illusion.
Yes. But it's all an illusion, right?
No, not quite.
No. There's still something there.
Well, if there's something preceding it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a unfolding question. Where it changes is when when you start meditating and start developing deeper levels of awareness, and then a lot of things start to happen.
I've
Not
been
very-
meditating for over 50 years.
Yeah, it's not a very good night for me. I'm not thinking very well, but anyway.
Well, I guess you're excused.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
So now we're going to go into the astrology discussion, and I'm going to do two short pieces, and then Marjorie's going to take it over. Now, all of this is on the resources tab on the alephtalks.com website, so you can get it all. So the first thing we're going to talk about
what discussion? I'm sorry, I couldn't understand what you said. Holy
the
science.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
This is the great year. Okay. So we mentioned this before, that the Earth rotates 24 hours around its axis. The Earth goes around the sun in 365.25 days every year, but the axis of the Earth carves out a small little circle in the heavens, and it's like a top. You think of a spinning top that just kind of has the top roll around a little circle.
That's the North.
So
Pole.
whatever you think of as the North Pole is actually changing, and it takes roughly 25,000 plus years to complete one complete cycle through this circle. Now, some people suspect that this is due to the solar system having a second star that might be a very dark star, what's called a brown star, and it might be a long ways out. No one really knows yet. It could also be due to another massive planet as opposed to a star. But it's there, it's real, and it's been logged in through the millennia. Everyone looks at this, and so why is it so important? So here's an explanation.
The precession of the equinox.
The precession of the equinoxes is important because, as you'll see, this cycle that's over 25,000 years is called the Great Year, and we're picking this stuff up from a book written in 1894 called The Holy Science by Swami Sri Yukteswar, and here's a picture of him. And so what does he say? He says, well, if you look here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have all 12 signs of the zodiac here, all 12 of them, okay? And so we have, for example, with the birth of Jesus of Nazareth, we went into the age of Pisces. So I'm just looking to see, where's Pisces on this thing?
Up at the top.
Here?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then before Pisces, that would be this, right?
That's Aquarius. That's
No, so it's this. We transition from the age of Taurus, the bull, into the age.
But the ram comes in between. That's the bull.
That's the bull. We have the ram. Then we have the age of Pisces, which has been the last 2,000 plus years. If you take 25,000 and divide by 12, I think the magic number is 2,160 years. So each one of these takes 2,160 years. And we've already crossed over into the age of Aquarius, which is here. Okay, so what has happened here is that in this book, they claim, well, really, we go through these cycles in life. And the cycles are, here's a golden age for the planet, a golden age up here. And we're going into this golden age. But then we transition to a silver age, a bronze age, an iron age where things are really bad. And then we start over again and go to bronze and silver and then to gold. So life on Earth is cyclical. So we take a look at this and we see, according to this book, he rounded everything to even numbers. So he just picked the Iron Age is 1,200 years, the Bronze Age is 2,400 years, Silver Age is 3,600, and the Golden Age is 4,800. So half of this is ascending and half of it is descending, and he thought it was 24,000 years. I think it's actually, like I said, 25,000 plus years. Each of these is, like I said, 2,160 years. So we go back and just try and summarize this. We had the peak of the Golden Age in 11,500 BC. And then that continued on up to 6,700 BC, still the Golden Age. We went into a Silver Age here at 3,100 BC, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age. This is, the Roman Empire covers this period here, the Iron Age. This is not a good time to be around. Then we have this Bronze Age going into the Silver Age and Golden Age. So that's what is claimed here. And we're going to come back to this. Again, I just wanted to start it off and give you that as an impression, so you would just keep it in your mind. Why do we keep harping on this? This is also what came about in the book Hamlet's Mill, where they were talking about this mill grinding away, and it takes over 25,000 years to do one cycle. But it was really important to people. People paid attention to it, and there must be a reason for it. And some people claim the reason is that we actually go through these cycles, and if we go through these cycles, then we better keep that in mind when we should take this into account when we plan accordingly. Now, the final thing I'm going to do is
just talk a little bit about the book.
The book,
Hamlet's Mill.
The book Hamlet's Mill. Okay, go ahead.
Well, the thesis is that really the purpose of the origin of all the myths that we have, that Jung talks about in universal terms, was that they were mnemonic devices for remembering where we were at different points in the cycle. So when they're talking about Jupiter and Saturn, that's about the cycle of the planets, and Jupiter's cycle is every 12 years, and Saturn's is every approximately 30 years, 29. And so when Jupiter overtakes Saturn, it makes a certain pattern that is reflected in the stories of the myths of their sort of rivalry. And so the idea is that all the myths that we think of as just these pretty stories and just randomly associated with planets and constellations, and the story is, oh well, that this constellation was that creature or figure from history was placed in the sky as Pegasus, because that's where the gods put him. Whereas it was actually a mnemonic device to remember where we were in the cycle, not only of the year, but of the larger cycles of the great year.
Yeah, one of the things to keep in mind about this peak of the Golden Age is this is probably when Atlantis was at its peak. And then things went downhill from there. So we'll come back to this, okay? So now,
Bart, can I ask a question?
yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Bart, so it's 25,000 years, and halfway through is each time is the Iron Age, which is the bad time, right?
Yeah.
Did you also say, because I remember reading about this, that every, sort of 10 to 12,000 years, call it 12,500 years, is when this planet or this other something is wreaking havoc on our Earth. Is that right? So that would be right in line with the
Yeah.
Iron Age. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense, because if you look geologically and you see every whatever 12,500 years, there is a like a massive a line of destruction, probably happened around maybe around the dinosaur age.
Right.
But people working at NASA would back you up.
Yeah, and it may well be the cycle of a comet that's in orbit. There is one that we recognize called Chiron, that's in between Saturn and Uranus. You know, the Mayans had all kinds of patterns that they noticed with eclipses and things, and weather patterns, and you know, wars and history. So yeah, I think these ideas are, you know,
They
pretty archetypal.
yeah, they felt it was important enough to record where they were at in these different periods of time. So, you know, they have other things they can do, but they didn't miss this. They really went crazy studying this. So,
It was the shaman's job, you know, to the community to be aware of the cycles of the year, because you don't always know when to do the harvest. It's not just the weather, and it might be too late or too early, and then the whole tribe won't make it through the winter if you know, if you don't get the biggest harvest that you could get. There's like, you know, 3 or 4 during the year. We just think, oh, it must be a fall thing. It's not only. There's one in August that's important to, and that's a cross-quarter holiday in between the equinox and the solstice, that it's important to, or between after the solstice, the summer solstice, and before the autumn equinox in this hemisphere. It's important to know when that's coming, exactly when it's coming.
there's also winter wheat that I think is harvested in the spring, because it was planted in the winter, just before the winter, and so it goes. So anyway, what we've got here is, this is off of the website of the resources tab, and the question that comes up again and again is there any statistical evidence that shows that astrology is quote unquote statistically valid? So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to just skip down here a ways. I went too fast.
This is all the website.
So you can see. So there's a statistician, Michelle Gauquelin, who was a graduate in statistics and psychology from the Sorbonne. So he and his wife said, well, we'll go ahead and go through this stuff. And, you know, their bias going in is there was nothing there. And when they finished doing their statistical analysis, they determined there was some relationship that was statistically valid between the planets' positions at the moment of birth and the direction of the individual lives of people. So that's why people focus on your birth chart. They want to know, they need to know to the minute, not just the day, but to the minute when you were born. And if you're off by a few minutes, that by itself can take you off to a different planet. Different, you know, you'd say, well, how is that possible? Well, you just have to go look at it and you'd see it's very easy. So we actually put Jung's birth chart on the website, so you can look at Jung's birth chart and see, did he follow the direction of his life based on when he was born. So Gauquelin ended up going at this right after World War II, and he looked into all sorts of things involving heredity and character traits. But the one that got the most notoriety was the correlation between the position of a planet in the natal chart and a person's chosen profession. And because of this very, statistically valid correlation, this was most famous of these studies was called the Mars effect. So initially he looked at 576 birth charts, and they revealed the correlation between Mars and Saturn with physicians. Now, the chance of this happening statistically are millions to one. You could not dismiss this as just a chance with 576 of these birth charts. So then they did a second study with 508 births, and they looked at other professions, and they saw that Mars seems to correlate with athletes, Saturn with scientists, the moon with writers, and Jupiter with actors and politicians. And those findings only apply to very eminent professionals and were not present in the charts of more average professionals in those fields. And the level of significance for some of these correlations was, again, far beyond anything that would be viewed as chance. So there was a huge statistical validity to this. He published his research in 1955 and argued that what he was demonstrating was not evidence of astrology, but some other celestial influence. And of course,
he poo-pooed astrology. He set out to debunk it.
right.
Actually. But then when the correlations started showing up, he wanted to call it cosmobiology to distinguish it from the flaky new age thing of astrology.
Right.
That, or whatever it is, ancient superstition. So he was a reluctant member of the field, let's say. He really wanted to disprove it,
Yeah.
and ended up proving it.
Now he published this himself, and so no one can prevent you from doing that. But he decided that since he was being ignored, he decided to have it published in a professional journal, and that required a peer review by other statisticians. So here's what happened. After a lot of arm twisting, he finally got a critique from Marcel Boll, who was a well-known French science writer and a member of the Belgian Committee for the Investigation of Paranormal Phenomena. And his main objection to what Gauquelin did was the study used only birth data from France. And he said, well, this is all true, but we all know that French are frogs anyway. So, this is just a fluke due to France. And if he'd taken birth records from other countries, then the results would be no better. Now, any statistician, when you've looked at, he did hundreds of these charts. Okay, so the chance that there's something special about France is highly unlikely, but it was his objection. Okay, and most statisticians would say this is ridiculous. The flip side to it was this professor of cosmic physics at the College of France replied that this correlation was simply a result of insufficient sample size. If they'd had, 5,000 or 50,000 of these charts, then it would have all washed out. There wouldn't have been any correlation whatsoever. So what did Gauquelin do? He first, instead of just blowing the first guy off, he went over to Germany, Italy, Belgium, and the Netherlands, and now he has 25,000 birth records, and he showed that the results of his study with all of these different countries were identical, just as significant. That the same planets in the key sectors of the charts correlated with people being eminent in these various professions. There were some national variations, but everything repeated significantly in the same direction as in the original study just from the group in France. And he took a control group of non-specialized professions, and that didn't show any effect whatsoever. And so he published all this in 1960. Now, in the 60s, he did another gigantic study trying to see the relationship between parents and their children. A 30,000 size sample of ordinary French citizens and their children revealed that when parents had certain planets in these two sectors of their astrological charts, the children are also likely to have the same planets in the same sectors. So this suggested there were correlations between particular planets such as the Moon, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn were stronger in that order. And the significance level was 1,000,000 to 1. So it wasn't chance. However, if there were cesarean births or you induced a birth, then you didn't get this pattern at all. So it was something that was felt to be real. And with that, oh, here's the precise period, 25,772. If you divide this by 12, you get 2,148. Some other people came up with 2,160. Okay, so that's where we're at. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do, and I'm now going to turn it over to Marjorie. And Marjorie is going to handle the discussion.
We'll see. She hopes she can talk for a few minutes. So these are the tabs on the website. So this is kind of a table of contents under here, under the blogosphere, of some articles about astrology that are posted there. And there's a part 1 and part 2 about Mercury retrograde. And this is an artificial image showing what the illusion of retrograde would look like. So known as Mercury retrograde. From our perspective here on Earth, the orbit of Mercury around the sun appears to reverse direction approximately 3 to 4 times a year, for approximately 3 weeks at a time. Here's a video showing the geometric reason for the illusion of Mercury's backward motion around the sun. It took astronomers a long time to understand this phenomenon, which actually affects all the planets in our solar system, but not the sun or moon, from our perspective, with Mercury simply being the most talked about. So this is a really good video, which I recommend visiting later on your own. I don't want to take up class time unless people really want to. But on December 13th, we're about to have another Mercury retrograde. So I invite you to observe for yourself what happens. There's a kind of stereotypical downside to it, and then there's a potential upside, which I like to empower people to learn how to work with. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So Mercury retrograde tends to have a very bad rep, as these times are notorious for wreaking havoc with our best laid schedules and plans, contracts and travel, communications and deliveries. For a more complete list of challenges, see the list below to the left. So we're going to get down here. These are the cons in this column, and these are the pros in this column. So we want to make it that far tonight, at least. So most people are just aware of the alleged challenges. So I like to point out that it's also supposed to be good for things. These cycles are most frustrated if you merely try to insist on straight ahead forward motion no matter what. Then you will most likely feel that you are bringing your nose into a wall at every turn and getting nowhere fast. On the other hand, if we can learn to shift gears into a more Zen state of mind, letting go and working with what is rather than fighting it, these 3 to 4 week periods can be like a pleasant staycation and even become productive, if you must, in their own way. But you might also benefit from learning to simply be. Try to welcome these cycles as an opportunity for or an invitation to a different mode of being. Then we can learn to enjoy the potential benefits listed below to the right. These periods are always a good time to slow down and reflect and be less focused on doing, going, producing. We all need time to mend our sails and nets and to just stop and think, to go inward and reconnect not only with our closest intimates, but with ourselves. Should not be such a luxury or a rarity that we need a special reason to do it, such as being sick and having the flu. So here's a nice view of it. There's that kind of circle in another context that Bart was talking about. Said to be good periods for all kinds of things that begin with RE. Think, review, reflect, repair, rethink, and you'll have the right idea. These periods can become welcome changes of pace if we can learn to let go of it. Try not just to keep plowing ahead, as this usually backfires. Consider these cycles as invitations to pause and examine your past. What does this introspection tell you about your present trajectory into the future? As you reflect on your habits, routines, relationships, practices, what might you reconsider and refine? Such a re-evaluation can be much more valuable than stubbornly resisting the resistance you are likely to encounter. I'd like to thank one of our regular Aleph Talk participants, a longtime fellow Unitarian congregant by the name of Stephen Kutzler, for pointing out that it might be appropriate to view these 3-week intervals as a sort of Sabbath in our otherwise full steam ahead schedules. Exactly. That is a very wise insight. These periods are great times to let go and let God or let the universe take a turn. We can take a little time off from all the heavy lifting that we feel to keep up with, lest the whole show come tumbling down, which I think is real hubris. It's a time to remember that there are also other larger forces at work, and to explore what the great mystery may have in mind beyond our limited conscious understanding and doing. So here's some links. This is Mercury, Gemini, the 3rd house. Those things all correspond to one another. And this is from a book that I've been working on that could be, we're talking with somebody about making it a software program. It's how I teach astrology. It's as a symbolic language, and there's a correspondence between Mercury, Gemini, and the 3rd house. The planet is said to be the verb of action, let's say writing or speech, communication. And then Gemini is the how, that's the adverb. And then the 3rd house is where. So it would be like, let's say, changeable communication in lower education would be, if all 3 were together, which would be very unusual. It's usually that Mercury is in some other sign in some other house. but this is their natural correspondence. So things like media and sales are said to be especially affected by these cycles. So if you're in sales, commerce is considered to be a Mercury ruled area. And so cold calls are difficult at this time. It's a hard time to begin anything new. However, it's a great time for culling your old files and reconnecting with old clients and customers is to be encouraged. You may benefit from renewing old partnerships and strategic alliances, even if you have been out of touch for a while. You may even develop new insights that lead to finding new ways of looking at old dynamics and relationships. If you are offered a new job, the conventional wisdom is to wait until after these periods end to formally accept or begin the job. If you feel you absolutely cannot put it off, be prepared to learn that the job may not be what you think it is at the outset, or for it to change drastically once you begin. Do as much research as you possibly can, and try not to burn any bridges behind you. However, if you were offered an old job back, or a new job with an old boss, or invited to resume an old partnership or client relationship, these all get green lights. If you feel that you absolutely cannot wait to move house, or sign a lease or deed of sale, buying or selling, the same rule of thumb applies. Buyer, seller, beware. All may not be what it seems, and you may end up regretting your decision as what is currently hidden becomes clear in the future. That's usually what happens. That something that was just not visible at the time becomes apparent later. I have a friend who just moved during the May-June Mercury retrograde. This was in 2022. We abbreviate that as MRX, an astrologer himself, no less. And he found as he unpacked boxes in his new place that had been stored for several years, everything had to be rewashed and repacked to deal with the musty odor that he didn't want to bring into his new home with him, making his move a seemingly endless rerun of going back to the old place to rewash, re-rinse, repeat. Now, this still would have been the case even if he had waited for 3 more weeks. The smell would not have gone away by itself, but he was able to laugh good-naturedly as he lived out the universe's sense of humor, which can be incredibly literal. So far, it still seems like it was a good move. He's still there, but only time will tell for sure. Legal complications are still unfolding in his situation as we head into the September retrograde period. Sometimes a subsequent retrograde period helps to straighten out a previous one. Similarly, sometimes lost objects or papers or money are actually found, returned, or refunded during Mercury retrograde. So what if you're born with Mercury retrograde in your natal chart? I've heard of it going both ways, favorably and unfavorably. My second astrology teacher was born when Mercury was retrograde in her chart. And she said these 3-week periods were her best times of year, as everything goes more smoothly for her. She feels out of sync most of the rest of the time. She's very fond of history, and for many years did most of her astrology work by hand, not liking or trusting computers. She was also very used to double and triple checking everything she did to make sure it was accurate. A good habit at any time, but especially during these periods and with this natal pattern. If you absolutely must travel during these cycles, make extra copies of your documents and directions and maps and have a way to retrieve them. Bring extra batteries and snacks and leave extra time for mishaps, and have backup plans to your backup plans.
It is said to be easier to travel for leisure than for business in these cycles, and returning to old familiar destinations is easier than new places you have never been to before, in keeping with the lists below. As with anything, be your own source and see what is true for you. Experiment with these ideas and see for yourself. Do these periods of the year make any difference at all? Are they just more difficult, or is there any silver lining? Do certain things become easier if you can shift your focus? In 2022, both Christmas and Hanukkah came before the December retrograde period, which is not usually the case. Those holidays both usually occur with Mercury being retrograde. A chance to see how that reflected on holiday travel and gifts to be returned. In 2023, the retrograde will be over just well before the holidays. It may still be nice to see how rewarding a more introverted holiday season can be as we begin to hopefully emerge from the forced retreat of the pandemic in the past few years. Try it, you just may like it anyway. So here are the two lists of things that are favored by Mercury retrograde and challenged by it. So first, the challenging things. Machinery of any kind, particularly anything having to do with transportation, like cars or planes. Machinery, appliances, technology, computers, communications. That means telephones, fax, email, etc. Any kind of contract or agreement, especially leases, anything to do with sales, or such as deeds, mail and deliveries, negotiations, discussions and meetings, whether it's in person or Zoom and internet, any kind of commerce, travel, whether it's by train, plane, car, bus, or boat. The means of travel often are troubled: roads, train tracks, rivers, transportation itself, deliveries, orders, receipts, keys, health setbacks. It rules health on another level. Old health issues resurfacing. And all these things lead to the things we commonly associate with Mercury retrograde are chaos, confusion, conflict, delays. There's just very often misunderstandings, not necessarily really real animosity. Just confusing things like wrong directions and miscommunications, misconnections, forgotten appointments, losing things, especially paper and money. And then these are all things that are easier during Mercury retrograde. In general, we can say, whether symbolically or literally, looking backward or inward in any kind of redoing. So introspection, retrospection, journaling, memoirs, scrapbooking, memorabilia, archiving, nostalgia, gratitude. It's good to do a gratitude journal. It's a great thing to start with the Mercury retrograde. Reviewing, remembering, recalling. Sometimes I just use redundant words because they have different associations for people. But preparation and planning are said to be okay. Research can be enhanced, history, archaeology, teaching, learning, and studying. That can go either way. It can be challenging or supported. I say specifically especially if you're relearning something or reviewing something that you studied a while ago for a new test of some kind, that can be favored. Meditation is favored, repairs, mending, any kind of cleaning or maintenance, editing, revising, refining, rethinking, reconsidering, reevaluating, redoing, reworking, rewriting, rewind, reconnect, replenish, recreating, redesigning, recanting, rebuilding, renovations, reorganizing, cleaning, sorting, finding lost objects, papers, money, refunds often come through. It's good for healing and therapy. It's good for regular practices like spiritual practices or creative practices. And it's also a good time for changing or forming new habits or reforming old habits. So these are some old images. This is actually from the book that we were talking about, Hamlet's Mill. And this is an image from, I think it's from 1923, it looks like 33, of the path that Mercury retrograde traces in the sky in the course of a year. And this is just another angle. And some people believe that that looks a lot like a labyrinth. And they think that might be where the imprint, the archetype of the labyrinth came from, is that it's associated with that pattern. And just about every culture associates Mercury with the caduceus. So this is a Hindu symbol to the right, showing like the yin and yang serpents going up the chakras to the third eye. That would be the crown above. And this is a very traditional way of representing that. It's almost the same image to the left here, but this is from Kabbalah. And it's a lot of Egyptian symbolism that has, very similar ideas connected with it. So this looks almost the same as the caduceus to the right. So these are just some notes. And this is a Toltec image of a hairstyle that they traditionally wear, showing their god, their equivalent to Mercury in this hairstyle with these rolls of hair, showing the retrograde cycle, which again looks incredibly like a labyrinth. And that's also from the book we were talking about, Hamlet's Mill.
Wait, geez, read the. Go ahead at the top. This labyrinth facilitate. No, go ahead. There, right there.
Oh, labyrinth facilitators are fond of pointing out when a young man asked Carl Jung, "What's the fastest way to your destiny?" Jung said, "A detour." So I find that learning to work with these cycles like a labyrinth path, the idea is not just to walk straight into the center. Anybody can do that anytime. You get so much more out of the journey with these 180-degree turns. So I just want to, this is another article about the symbolism. And here we're just gonna skip here to part 2. This is another really good video that this image actually came from. And there's the so there's more here about, it's also associated with Virgo in the 6th house and healing. The caduceus is pretty much universally in any culture associated with healing, which is sort of less in the pop psychology. But here
all the things for Mercury are the same as the other chart. But Virgo has to do with purification and perfection and sifting and separating the wheat from the chaff. So that all has a lot to do with health and healing. These are all sixth house things. So this is a kind of deeper level. And another thing is, as we touched on in part one, is jobs. But here we talk a bit about Newton. He was a big believer in astrology and contributed enormously to astronomy. So as I said, the planet is considered to be the light itself, if you compare it to a stage light, and the sign colors the light like a gel on a stage lighting. And then the area of life, or the houses, are the stage where the light is projected to. So here we have some of the healing symbolism. The different parts of the body are associated with the psychological issues that correspond to the part of the body, and so on. So we are with, these are the chakras, the Virgo connections with the sixth house and healing. To the right here, this is actually the tree of life from Kabbalah. And the center, the middle pillar, as it's called, does correspond more or less to the chakras, to the 7 chakras. So it's, we don't know if they influenced each other or they just came about in parallel. So this is the tree of life with more detail, and there's the serpent that's associated with it, and then there's a sword showing the descending energy that's coming from the divine above as a lightning bolt. And then it said that the path of return for humans is the serpent path. And so it's no mistake that the story of Adam and Eve and the serpent and the tree of life and the apple, in the Garden of Eden, all have to do with, I say, Eve was actually initiating Adam, and Kundalini has to do with sexual energy in particular, and energy, all energy in general, and healing energy. Now this is the pattern of the tree of life, and here is where it comes from. It comes from this pattern. On the left is the flower of life. Here the tree is overlaid on top of the flower of life. And this is Grand Central Station in New York. What better symbol of transportation? And Mercury is, it's no mistake that Mercury is on top of the building and their clock. There's the caduceus with the serpents in his left hand. And
I think AT&T, when it was at 195 Broadway, it had in the lobby Mercury.
for communications.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that would make sense. And there were, Masons were involved in all this architecture. So this is the 1913 Beaux-Arts building in Midtown.
for the Grand Central.
Yeah.
And this is the ceiling with the signs of the zodiac. It's actually backwards. It's a mistake. But there you can see the two fish, and it's just gorgeous. You know, it's one of my favorite buildings ever. I grew up in New York. And then this is another Masonic symbol, no doubt. This was the Whitehall building down by Battery Park. And it's very clearly the acorn in the wings and the two serpents. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about Kundalini. They're not talking about anything but Kundalini. That's what it's about. And this is an ancient Egyptian caduceus with two cobras facing a pine cone. And they call it the staff of Osiris. It's their equivalent in some ways to Mercury. So there's some thought that there was one universal religion, that they all used this symbolism, and now in the West it's become completely esoteric. So outside of the context of something like the Masons, who are, you know, just deeply steeped in all the symbolism, it's far more common in the East, particularly in Hindu symbolism. And so here we have the caduceus with the seven chakras again, and their meetings. And you can zoom in on these things. This is what the body parts,
the organs, yeah.
that and organs that correspond with the area of the body. And here's a really, I think, a beautiful one. This is what they knew about the anatomy of the brain, and that's what they were talking about. It wasn't just imaginary. It wasn't just figurative. And so I'll just skip over this now. But a lot of cultures traditionally associate labyrinths with astrological phenomena, particularly the equinoxes and the solstices. So we've been doing that at the Unitarian Church, and we're going to have a labyrinth walk on the 23rd. The solstice is on the 21st. This year, they used to fall on the 25th of the month, but because of the precession of the equinoxes, which is part of what Bart was talking about earlier with the book Hamlet's Mill, that's why it's moving backwards. It's a precession because it's going backwards through the signs. So this is a very elaborate 13 circuit labyrinth that was created out of marble in the year 1100. It's 42 feet across. And they transported this marble from Wales to Chartres, which is north of Paris, you know, with horses and men pulling these huge blocks of marble. You know, why did they go to all that trouble?
And there's a rose window that's very well known, that if you took the wall where this rose window is and dropped the wall down, it would fit, the rose window would fit perfectly on this labyrinth.
It's like there's a
in
hinge
Chartres.
there. And so the part of the thinking is that these were ancient pagan practices that were mostly done outdoors, sometimes by warriors and seamen building their courage up. And then it became more and more of a more yin kind of contemplative thing to do. But they're found everywhere. They're all over the Baltic Sea. They're all over Peru. You know, they're just really ubiquitous in that sense. They're really true archetypes.
Yeah, every age and anywhere on planet Earth, you'll
Has
find labyrinths.
of some
And-
of
Or
some kind,
some people say they're mandalas,
right?
but yeah,
And again, there's a classical style that this is a finger labyrinth of that 13th circuit. The classical style is, well, I have to go back to part one. This is a classical style. These are the more ubiquitous. The more complex one with the 13th circuit was created for Chartres in the year 1100. But other cathedrals, especially in France, have similar ones, but some of them are octagonal, some of them are square. They're not all the same, and they have different numbers of circuits, but it's people just kind of naturally associate them with, as I said, equinoxes and solstices. And it was the Christians who brought them indoors and made them, they may have been in caves before, but made them more formal and liturgical. You can match up the stations on the cross in the circuits. Some people say the tree of life from Kabbalah can be aligned with it. I don't know myself. But they're done very commonly for May Day and the solstices. So this is I think it was in Denmark, someplace like
it's
that.
a maypole.
Yeah, the maypole, and they're often danced around either a tree in the center or a pole where they do the maypole. This is the labyrinth, which is where the name is said to come from, and those U-turns, I say, are where you really feel this kind of shift in your brain when you're walking it. That's really interesting, and get these insights. And the same thing, I think they're just about as effective, maybe a little less, doing bigger labyrinths. And we have one printed out that we bring, and sometimes when we're in the car, we just do it, usually with a pen or something kind of pointed, so that you don't lose your place. But I gave one of these to our old minister, a big finger labyrinth like this. I'd love to have one. So it's said to imitate the shape of a uterus, the folds of the brain, and here is a uterus from the front, that's the uterus, and the fallopian tubes. So you kind of get this imagery that I think we feel instinctively when we're walking it, of birth and rebirth. It's thought to be extremely helpful for Parkinson's and things like that, even being wielded in a wheelchair. And if they can't do that, tracing them with your fingers, they make them, you can buy them with two, so you can do it with two hands at the same time. And when my mother had her massive stroke, I got one of those for her, and I would hold her hands and trace them through it. She had a lot of recovery. She was also getting acupuncture and other interventions. And I can't say exactly what was due to what. This in the center is partly an ancient sacred geometry symbol and has become Christianized. It represents the 7 days of the week. There's this rule of sacred geometry that any circle can be surrounded by exactly 6 circles of exactly the same size. So those 7 represent the 7 days of the week. And so that's part of the symbolism of the Chartres labyrinth. And a lot of people like to sit in the center. I call it downloading when I sit there, which I really like. So for me, a Mercury retrograde and a walk in a labyrinth, where again, the point is not to get to the center as fast as you can. That's not the point. The point is to follow these convolutions. And that's the journey, is the detours on the way. And that's where we have the insights. That's where it seems to do something to our brain chemistry and electricity. They're totally chemical things that I feel is like a backstitch. So there's a video here showing that the way a backstitch works is you're going along, you're going forward, and then you go back and come up ahead of where you were. The needle goes down here, but it comes up here and then comes back. So if you think about that as a metaphor for periods in your life that seem like you're just enduring this terrible setback, very often I find, if you think about it, you do come out ahead of where you thought you were or where you thought you were going. So I take solace in that. So this is a way of looking at the delays and detours that occur in life, whether Mercury is retrograde or not. And it's very much a part of any healing process. So rather than groaning and rolling our eyes when life seems to rear its ugly head again, or its umpteenth review, if we really pay attention, we may be able to discern that there is really a spiral at work rather than a vicious circle. And we can welcome the opportunity to truly integrate the lesson more consciously. This idea is conveyed beautifully in a mantra commonly associated with Kundalini Yoga and used in the Sikh tradition, in which we contemplate our gratitude toward life itself as the ultimate divine teacher, the guru within. Gratitude that we experience anything at all, that we have the gift of consciousness at all, that we experience at all, good or bad, is a miracle. Miracle beyond the miracle of mere existence in the first place. So that said, Om Namo Guru Dev Namo, which can be translated as I bow to the subtle divine wisdom. I bow to the divine teacher within. This is the Sikh practitioner. She's popular, Kirtan leader, recording artist, doing it. And this is another African-American Sikh guy. This is actually him doing it in Israel, where his wife is from.
Actually, I think we should get Gladys Knight. She does this.
Not Gladys Knight.
No, who is it?
You're so cute.
It's not Gladys Knight.
Bart has Motown on the brain because
Yeah.
he's from Detroit. It's Ike and Tina Turner.
Tina Turner. Tina Turner does this. There's a nice YouTube video of Tina Turner. She did it for decades.
Well, she does the Buddhist chant, which is a kind of Japanese Buddhism, but it's not this Om Namo Guru Dev.
No, it's different.
Yeah,
But it's close. Yeah.
but we could end with this. See if our people are still awake, still with us. We can lower the volume. So in the true mystic tradition, she's singing to the divine as a lover, like Ruby. Or Hafiz.
And I'm coming.
So, is anybody out there?
And I'm coming. And I'm coming. I'm coming.
Who's Bruce? I lost Bruce.
She might have lost Bruce.
Yeah.
I think we woke him up when we called.
Oh, you're sick.
Yeah. So. Okay, so we have one still with us, one brave soul.
Okay, let's get out of the share screen. Nope, we can still got Bruce here.
Okay, there he is. Is he still awake?
Do you know that chant, Bruce? Okay. And when Tina Turner does it, she's got an incredible voice. And boy, you can just feel everything rolling and rumbling. And I think she can cover 3 or 4 octaves
Yeah.
too, so she can really go deep as well as high. It's amazing.
And very resonant.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Completely. You can just feel the essence of the world around you, of the collective unconsciousness that's everywhere. Just feel it coming in. So, any questions on anything? Patty's not on mute. So maybe she went to the bathroom.
She just muted when you said that. Well, any comments from your Buddhist perspective, Bruce? Oh, there she is.
Hey,
I've been here. It's just right now it's kind of coming in and out. So if you don't see me, it's not because I'm not here.
Okay. There's the kitty. She's smiling. She's definitely smiling. She's oh good. Are you done? Are you going to talk to me now?
Yeah, he liked the music.
That's true. They often do. I was making a labyrinth at a friend's house at the church, and we left it set up on. She had a big living room, so we left it set up on her floor as we were working on it. We were making it on a king size sheet to share with the little kids. And her cat started to walk across it. We were on the phone, and she started saying, "Oh my God, oh my God, I wish you were here. I wish you could see that we didn't have cell phones." She said, the cat is walking the labyrinth. She's following the paths. And I have some videos of horses doing it, and they love it. I swear they feel the energy. The design creates kind of a portable vortex that is palpable. Ours is painted on a large canvas. It's like 24 feet across, I think. 25 feet across. And the paths are about a little over a foot wide. So this is a bigger version than the one that my friend and I created for the kids. This is the adult version. And I can't really talk straight when I'm standing in the middle of it.
I'm not really grounded enough to handle all the energy.
Patty, there's a nice labyrinth in stone, in the Norwalk Green. Right,
Really?
you know,
Church.
it's outdoors, it's open year round. You can go there anytime.
It's behind the Episcopal Church, St. Paul's.
St. Paul's Church,
Yeah, St.
Episcopal
Paul's
Church.
is at the end of the green, and it's on the far side.
You don't need to go in the building. You can just
go
go right
around,
to the labyrinth.
around
Yeah.
and they have a really nice compline service on Sunday nights in the church, and they will light up the labyrinth afterwards, so you can go in the dark.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we've done that one several times. And I brought my mother there. She loved it. And I walked her in a wheelchair once. And
Yeah, I think, and if we go back here to, let me see. I just wanted to show you a picture of what the labyrinth looks like. Goes here, here,
it's on my
here.
Facebook page.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just trying to see. I can't.
Resources.
Thought it was up here.
Oh, no, under there. New moon and full moon circles. Is it there?
Yeah, here it is. Here it is. We'll just show you what it looks like in the sanctuary. See,
Let's make it bigger if we can.
no, it didn't do anything.
Oh, that's the one that you bring in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the canvas. It's an octagonal canvas.
and just put votives around the edge with little lights on them. So that's what it'll be like 4:30 on the 23rd. It'll be pitch black outside. And that's what it'll look like.
So you're gonna do a labyrinth walk on the 23rd?
Yep. Yeah, Saturday,
Saturday
23rd.
afternoon. And we might have, hopefully we'll have it together, a light show of mandalas on a projector. I did something like this once, but the church doesn't have the projector anymore. It was for Earth Day, and we had all these nature shots projected across the canvas. So the projector was at the far end where those chairs are back there, and the image was coming onto the canvas. So when the people walked,
When you
They-
walk, here's the entrance to the labyrinth right here.
yeah,
So you're walking, you go in here, you come out here.
you go
So
in the same
you're
path.
going right, and it's down at this end is where the projector was.
So it was like these paintings on the people as they were walking. Of these
Beautiful.
nature scenes. And it was just amazing. So I'm hoping we could reproduce that with mandalas, which the labyrinth clearly is. It's just like a blown up life-size mandala that you're walking. So we were doing it at a yoga studio. That's what this was all about. This yoga shala in Fairfield. But then we have to climb a whole flight of stairs, and I have been too weak to do anything like that. So that's what we've been putting together. And we've been doing these quarterly events at the church. I've been doing them.
Over a decade.
Yeah, it's more since like 2002 or something like that.
Wow.
So that's more than 20 years.
Mhm. Right,
No, the first one I did was the 5th anniversary of September 11th. So that would have been 2006, right?
Yeah.
So that was the year I was ordained too. And that was my first act.
yeah. So that's it for tonight. We'll do something next week. There you go.
So-
Have a good,
We'll be sending out the
So I just for the next able to make it the week after. But I'm sure about next
Okay.
week. So I will, if I don't make it, just, know that it's, and I'll watch the recording.
no, that's what people do.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay,
we'll send you that and we'll send you the links and the overheads for tonight.
Wonderful.
okay. Have a
Okay.
good,
Bye.
bye-bye.
Feel
Bye,
better,
Bruce.
Get better, Bruce. Okay,
I think the worst is over. And the fact that you're still upright
Yeah.
is a good sign.
yep. Okay, here we go.